make a parlay. What do you say? Hand out a leg, hand out a leg, hand out a leg. Give away some gifts. And in this case, it's going to be a 3-leg parlay for Thursday Night Football. That's going to clear just north of 41. How do I know? Because I've already built it just to make sure it works. Hey, appreciate you rolling with us. It's getting close or right around the corner or maybe already to the point where if it's birthdays, a gift-giving holiday that you celebrate in this month, that you have maxed out a credit card, you've tapped out your Amazon account, whatever it may be, or maybe you are taking advantage of timing. You don't see your relatives until like the 28th, so you're going to buy stuff on the 26th. Whatever it is, we appreciate you rolling with us and trying to build back up that credit. So let's head on over to DraftKings. What are you doing? Not the Discord. We'll get to the Discord, all right? Yeah, the first week's free. I know all that, and I'll remind them of that we're raising things, and you can get grandfathered in, what have you. All right, well, there you go. You want to see it? First week is free. We are raising the price following the end of the year, so we want you to get in now before anything else, all right? And just to show you, we've done some great things so far, at the very least, on there. All right, so we're going to head on over to DK here, and as soon as the site allows such. All right, well, let me say this. As we come back, right, I want you to do a couple of things here for me. Hit that thumbs up button, please, because I didn't do that, and they're going to put this thing on below me that's going to ask you to. Subscribe if you can as well, all right? There we go. We got DK back up. I don't know what the hell happened here. This site, man, internet could be on me. We're not going to blame the book, right? We're going to build the same game parlay here, and we're going to start with a little creativity, okay? Now, if you look at this overall, San Francisco comes in with a gigantic stretch of turning the football over. Last 4 games, +2, +2, +3, +2. That's not going to sustain. Pete Carroll is one of the smartest coaches in the NFL. He's done solid work as a home underdog, even without and before Russell Wilson. In fact, he was 9-4 ATS before Wilson as a home dog. So we like Seattle to take advantage of a little regression here. There are a couple of major trends that are working all in Seattle's favor and a couple of major trends that are working against Seattle. So we're going to start with a game line here that keeps this thing tight and benefits us to drop this to 41.5. So what's the difference? 2 points, 43. The difference is that there is no difference. 43.5 and 41.5. 41 is the key number. 41 and 51. You'll notice a trend here as we manipulate spreads in our favor and sacrifice points to get something back. Under 41.5, we have a key number at 41. We have a hook here as well. We're expecting a lower scoring game. Brock Purdy is coming down to reality. He's also playing hurt. Geno Smith and Pete Carroll have a short, but still week or so, less than that, to prepare for this defense. And we do expect a little regression where you can't keep turning the football over to that extent without your offense now turning the ball over. So we expect a little bit from that, where don't be shocked if you see Brock Purdy or somebody on that end turn the football over. All right, well, what's going to happen with Purdy, right? He's not going to drop back and throw downfield. We know Deebo Samuel's out. What about Brandon Ayuk? Probably not so much. Christian McCaffrey is an interesting target, and I mean that literally here as we go down to receptions. And now we're going to target Christian McCaffrey at 5+ receptions. And what I think I'm going to do is actually bump that up only because, I mean, it's a parlay, so we don't need to, right? But I would not hate you if you wanted to bump that up to 6+ at +155. This man is going to be targeted extensively. And if you look at it, since he's come over to San Francisco, the Chiefs game was his first game, so you can take that for what it's worth. But 5 of his next 6, he's cleared or at least hit 6. You know what? I think we need to add 6 in here. You've talked me into it. Thank you. 6+. All right, now I made you wait a little bit, so I'm not going to go do other stuff. I'm going to finish this whole thing with the understanding, of course, that you've already hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and you take advantage of what we're doing here at DraftKings, the Discord, etc. So this is what we have so far. Under 41.5, 6+ receptions for Christian McCaffrey. Look, that's not bad. I mean, I'm going to hit you with another leg. You know I'm going to hit you with another leg, but that's not a bad play. Okay, you look at everything across the board. It makes sense. Brock Purdy's banged up. Look, also, the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to get to this coming up here, they're in a really good spot as a home dog if they can just score 20 points. Home dogs that score 21 points cover the spread 75% of the time. So I want to go back to this and throw in a little insurance. And I think this does not alter the total, but it allows us to get a little extra in here. And again, now we're at plus 675. Okay, we've jumped this 200 points by laying minus 230 as we've built this properly.
If Tua struggles to throw the football, they can't get anything going on the ground.
Their running backs are so bad.
Yeah, and I'm a Mostert fan, but they don't have a good run game at all. And it looks like Wilson's going to be out. Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I don't know. They got to manufacture some stuff with Tyreek Hill or something like they did with Debo.
Right. And plus, how do they stop Diggs? How does that defense stop Diggs this week?
They're not going to.
They can't, right?
No.
Have you looked at the Saturday slate pricing? It's crazy.
I have not looked at pricing yet. Got my eye on the games a little bit, but is it wide open or is it tight?
It's pretty wide open if you're willing to go like Gabe Davis against Miami secondary for $5K.
That seems he's only $5K. It seems like the Thanksgiving slate.
I'm saying I think that's a good. Everyone's going to be afraid of guys like there's some check. Let me know what you think when you look at it. But that's the Saturday night game, Miami Buffalo. It's in 24 degrees at kickoff, lake effect snow, 15-mile-per-hour winds. It's going to be fun, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game. Might be my favorite game of the entire weekend.
Yeah. Hey, we're excited to have you guys with us. What's going on? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. Ooh, baby. All right, let's get into this one. Matt told me, and of course, today's show presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran, with me, Matt Gajewski, at Matt_Gajewski. I'm at Lafayette_D. You see the Twitter handles right down below. Give us a follow. Say hello on Elon Musk's brand new Twitter. Matt, you said to me right before the show started, like right when we popped into the room, this is an odd game. And I think on a number of levels, it is an odd game. Especially when you consider like Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan goes, yeah, he should be able to play without re-injuring anything, but mobility could be a big issue. So that's an odd spot on top of it. No Debo Samuel. And we'll talk about Al Woods a little later in the show too. Don't sleep on his injury if he ends up being out. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. And you mentioned it. Weird game. I think if you looked at this game at the beginning of this season, you probably would expect San Francisco to be like a 7-point favorite, maybe even higher. And that was because of the makeup of Seattle. But we've had Geno Smith play really out of his mind, play like one of the better quarterbacks in the league, except for his most recent game. I think that was probably the worst one he played all year. That was weird, unexpected. And then we've had San Francisco just battling through injury after injury. They've now lost 2 quarterbacks. They lose their number 1 receiver. They've lost running back after running back. Eli Mitchell's not playing in this game. And they've still been able to overcome everything. They've taken money in this game. I'm seeing -3. It's moving to -3.5 in some spots. Just a really weird game dynamic. But with that said, both teams have been playing awesome football, and we should be excited here.
No question. We're going to get into all of it. And we're glad that you guys can join us for today's show. We don't have many of these left.
We got to cherish them all, man. And luckily, I love that the NFL does these Saturday games late in the season. You know, I'm really any football guy. High school, I don't care.
Sure.
We can play DFS, bet on it. I'll watch it. I'll gamble on it. I don't care. But if we spread it out, more football, more slates, that's always a positive for me. So I love the Saturday stuff. I love the late season stuff.
Me too. I like the way they said, I'm honestly, if you ask me, would you like to have football on Tuesdays and Wednesdays as well? And Fridays, I would say no, only because it's just going to be so difficult to wake up in the morning. Like, if you want to do some 6 p.m. games, sign me up, right, on the East Coast. These 8:30 to 11:30, or later, it gets tough, man. It starts to wear on you throughout a season.
They play college football on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, everything but Sunday and Monday. So I've been on this 7-day-a-week grind for, I don't know, a few months now. I don't care. I love it.
But do you stay up? But I'm saying you stay up to watch these games till 11:30 midnight every night? There's no way.
Oh, not every night. No.
That's what I was saying. Like, I know I have no discipline, so I would stay up and watch all of them. And then my daughter would be waking up, standing up in her crib at 5:55 a.m. like she did yesterday. And I just go, oh God, I want to die. Like that's it. My first thought is I want to die. So not because I don't love her, but because I didn't fall asleep till 12:30. You know what I mean?
Right. And I know you watch college football, but I know you're not a savage like me, which is a good thing.
Not like when I asked you about Wyoming and you just gave me the rundown on every coach and player in history and on the history of the stadium.
Well, man, imagine this. You're a huge college football fan. You watch it all day, and then you have Hawaii on a night main slate, and they kick off at midnight Eastern time. You're telling me you're not watching that game? There have been times in college where I would come home from the bars after bar close, and I would catch the second half of Hawaii's football game.
That's just awesome.
Amazing stuff.
That's really fun, though. Like that, when I could do that, I did. I remember betting Hawaii games, like back when I had no real responsibility, not responsibility, you know what I mean? Like responsibilities in the sense where, like, if I got up at 10, it was okay. Right.
Right.
And that was awesome. You'd be like, oh man. And especially because I was like a casual college bettor. So I would just reach out to somebody. I didn't know enough about college, and it'd be late at night and I could be like, oh, there's still a game. It'd be pretty cool. But yeah, not the case anymore. Saturday football is the shit though. And I like that it's a novelty. See, that's where I think you and I differ a little bit from an NFL perspective. Like, I enjoy the fact that, especially because I'm not as big a college football guy as you, like, I love that the NFL will do, a couple Saturday slates a year, a couple odd, interesting things, but they have to bring back, like, what they should do. And I know it's tough because like Eastern, Western time or Pacific time, and you have to schedule it out. The Monday night doubleheaders are the greatest thing ever.
I love Monday night doubleheaders too. And from a DFS perspective, it adds a little more flavor to it because you can play 2 showdowns and you can play, a 2-game main slate, 2-game turbo slate. The good thing about Saturday this week is it kind of parallels Thanksgiving. We're going to have 3 showdowns. We're going to have a full 3-game main slate. So we have a lot of different options here. And I like playing it all. My philosophy just in life is more football is better.
I'm with you. You know what else is better? More likes. If you guys could take a second and hit that thumbs up button, it would be greatly appreciated. Sean said, Laffy D, like button already destroyed. Love it, man. By the way, I'm trying. Elon said he's purging all these accounts, Matt, that haven't been used in a while. I wanted Laffy. Like, that's, the D was just so I could. This guy hasn't tweeted since 2009. He has 8 followers, and I think 5 of them think it's me. And he has to, get him out of here. Purge that son of a bitch and let me take that handle back. Don't you agree?
Yeah, man. I'll be hoping for you. I'll keep my eye on it and let you know if I see it gone.
Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, guys, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below if you're listening after the fact. We try and read all of them, respond to them. And of course, if you are listening in podcast form, leave a rating, a review. All that stuff helps us a lot. Subscribe to the podcast, and all you guys, tell your friends about the strategy show here. We do things right around this way. Alexa's downstairs talk. I can get rid of these fucking things. Anyway, all right, let's get into this. We got San Fran. We have the Seahawks. San Francisco 49ers laying 3. You talked a little bit about, what teams taking money and everything. It is interesting though, because on one hand, you go San Francisco just routed the Bucs. They crushed Miami, and they're doing so with Brock Purdy at the helm. But Matt, that there's real ebbs and flows in the NFL. Like, just what you've seen for a couple weeks isn't always what you're going to get. Likely isn't. And it does feel like Seattle comes in here. I'm not saying they win, but I do think that this is one of those games that does stay competitive. The 3 points would suggest that. And Seattle now is fighting tooth and nail. They're fighting tooth and nail to keep their stay afloat in the playoff race, where you've got Washington and New York a half a game ahead of them because they tied a couple weeks back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a highly competitive game. And to your point on the quarterback situation, with maybe some unexpected play out of Brock Purdy, I think you could count a lot of times really where you have a backup come in, they play really well, and then other teams get film on them and they sort of get figured out, if you will. The question for me heading into this game is, does that happen with Brock Purdy? We're kind of working with two conflicting factors here. There's that factor, and then the Kyle Shanahan offensive scheme just traditionally has been phenomenal, and he can sort of plug and play quarterbacks as long as they are executors into the system. So that's a big question for me on the San Francisco side. Seattle, I think we know what we're going to get at this point. They're a semi-volatile team, but one that is really overachieved through the course of the year.
So the 49ers, looking at our boom bust tool, our top single game and showdown tools, plays tool. Amazing tool, by the way. You're getting leverage score on here, ownership in the captain spot, utility spot. You're getting top play probability, optimal captain probability, all of that stuff. 3 free days, entirely free too. Links in the description and in chat if you want to take advantage of it. And I will say, is there any better time? I've told you guys last week, and I got no pushback for this because it made sense, and I'm looking out for you guys. Is there any better time to take advantage of the 3 free days than now? I said this on like last week. I go, just don't even do it. Wait till Thursday. Wait till Thursday and do it on Thursday, because now you have Thursday, you have Showdown, you have Friday, and then you have all of Saturday. 3 games, basically Thanksgiving, as Matt said. And then you've got the tools for Sunday are already going to be updated. This is the best time of the year to take advantage of 3 free days of all of our NFL tools. So check it out. No strings attached. If you hate it, you can bounce afterwards, but I think you'll like it. Christian McCaffrey, almost a 50% top play probability. I don't think we can start anywhere other than there, Matt.
Yeah, it's absurd. And it's kind of just, they've lost so many players around him. Who else are they really going to trust with the ball in a voluminous role? Eli Mitchell, done. Deebo Samuel would occasionally cameo as a running back, less so than the previous year, but they could use him there. They could spell Christian McCaffrey. Now we're talking about Jordan Mason, who is an undrafted free agent running back, Tyrion Davis-Price, a guy they haven't been comfortable even being active on most game days. If they want to win games, they flat out know Christian McCaffrey needs to be their guy. He's priced up, but honestly, you could argue that he's not priced high enough based on what our tools say. And this is similar to Lamar Jackson. We had a situation like this on Monday with Ramondre Stevenson. Unfortunately, he got hurt, but it's not so much do I want to play Christian McCaffrey, but where do I want to play him?
Everyone got hurt on Monday.
Did you survive that Monday slate? I did not.
No, of course not. Did you?
No, I didn't make a single dollar. $0 back. 100% loss.
The guy that solo shipped the 500K, at least I looked, and I didn't even bother to go back and look. He was up by 10 in the fourth quarter, had no Stevenson, had no Kyler Murray, had no Devontae Parker. He somehow dodged every single landmine, but you're not dodging landmines on a main slate, right? Like, you're dodging landmines of like 2 of the best, highest owned players. And then I can't even imagine how much salary the guy left on the table.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I knew I was dead right when Kyler got injured. My big stance was I'm going to play more Ramondre in the utility spot, captain some Kyler, use a lot of Kyler's pass catchers, have Kyler in the flex. Obviously, that was just stone dead right from the third play of the game.
Dude, I turned the game off before the first quarter was over, because after Kyler went down, I'm like, okay, this is bad. I was like, okay, but because I had Kyler and all my, not all, but a lot of my lineups, and then I had the over on his rushing yard prop. Like, that's done. Well, okay, Devontae Parker, I got the over on his receiving prop. Like, he looks good, 24 yards in the first quarter. We'll take it. He was he had like the only 2 targets to start off the game, and I only needed 40 from him. And then he gets hurt, and I say, all right, this is not my day. We'll move on here. And that, it was horrible. But with McCaffrey, man, I mentioned to you earlier at the top of the show that the Al Woods injury, I don't think should be overstated. Like this guy last week when he was in and they moved things around on that defensive line to try and stop the run because their run game, dude, their run defense is allowing almost 200 yards per game over the last 5. And I know there was an overtime game, but they still gave up an 83-yard run to Josh Jacobs. Al Woods, when he was on the field, they allowed 74 yards on 22 carries. Not great, Carolina. And Carolina just wants to run the ball. Like, you know what they're going to do with the ball. After he went down before halftime, in the second half, they crushed them on the ground. Now you've got a team that Kyle Shanahan offense wants to run the football. It's really difficult for me to see a scenario, especially with Brock Purdy, if he plays not being 100%, where they don't look to just bludgeon the Seahawks on the ground as every team has done over the last 1+ months.
Absolutely. And I don't think he's going to play. He didn't practice all week. It's an Achilles.
Achilles, yeah.
Soft tissue. So that's something that's not, like, all right, we're just going to tape this up and be good. Like, he's going to be dealing with that through the game. Chance he re-aggravates it, misses time. And if he does play, highly doubt he's 100%. His absence would be a boost for McCaffrey, but whether he plays or not, I'm not all that worried. We've seen McCaffrey do some unbelievable things. The wide play stands out to me last week where he lines up out wide and you see him running downfield as if he's just a pure wide receiver catching passes and creating these unbelievable mismatches against defenders who just aren't built to stop a player like that. And the beauty of San Francisco's offense is they can be in one player personnel package, motion McCaffrey somewhere, get somebody who's not supposed to be covering him in that situation, and then boom, you've created maybe a mismatch that can turn into a big play for you. So I love McCaffrey. From a DFS perspective, just to talk about this mathematically, he's projected for just over 24 points. The next highest projected player is at 17. Like, we don't see discrepancies like this generally, even when players like Lamar Jackson are on the slate. This is vast.
Is the next closest Geno?
Yes.
So then what's the next closest skill player at? Just curious.
Tyler Lockett at 14. 10 points lower.
10 points. Damn. Dude, I mentioned this on my betting video yesterday and the one from Tuesday. Check it out on the Odd Shopper channel, by the way. Matt's got all his videos over there too, if you guys are into that. I got a picks for every game, all 16. That was treacherous, but we got it done. I mentioned that last week he looked more dynamic and decisive and explosive than I've seen in a while. Like, obviously he's always been great, but just bursting through the hole, his acceleration was quicker. I swear, dude, his acceleration looked quicker than anything I've seen in a while. Like, he was accelerating at the line of scrimmage and picking up 12 yards before anybody came close to him. There's just, I think the natural progression here when we're talking about CMC, and someone asked it in chat, do we just play him in every lineup? I don't think you need to captain him in every lineup. And obviously, if you run into a Stevenson situation with the injuries like last, it happens. But yeah, Matt, I would imagine I'm going to have as much Christian McCaffrey as humanly possible.
Yeah, we have his ownership combined, utility and captain at 83%. I'm going to say right now, I personally think it should be higher. So when you have edges like this, like, I'm going to play him in every lineup I have tonight. Whether it's captain or utility, that'll depend on the individual lineup, but I'm playing McCaffrey. That's it, period.
Makes sense. All right. The pass catchers. This is where it gets odd. No Deebo Samuel. They do anticipate him returning before the end of the season, but high ankle sprain, it'll be close. So that leaves us with Ayuk. And I did mention to you before the show, wanted to get your thoughts on this, was, all right, he has a 3.8% top play probability. Now, granted, nobody is all that high because McCaffrey's at 48%. We're using the top single game and showdown plays tool over at Stokastic. 3.8%. Optimal captain is 5.3%. I mean, I know he has slight negative leverage in the utility spot, but Ayuk at captain does intrigue me a little bit. If he's really going to be sub 4% owned there, and he's not that expensive, it is kind of interesting, assuming that Brock Purdy is good enough to not be terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Ayuk. Kind of to speak on the receivers as a whole quickly, I think we're running into a situation we need to be careful of because of the Debo injury. Ayuk is now going to be the wide receiver 1. He's a little expensive, but I think he's fairly priced for that role. You have Juwan Jennings as the 2, and Ray McLeod presumably is the 3, and he's at 1.2K. So I think you mentioned Christian McCaffrey's top play probability being nearly 50%. I think a lot of the reason that's happening, not just McCaffrey being a baller, but Ray McLeod potentially playing every single snap at 1.2K. You have no issues playing McCaffrey at 11.4 because Ray McLeod helps you fill it out. So you're running into a roster dynamic where a lot of these McCaffrey captain lineups are probably going to have Ray McLeod. So I think maybe if you just put Ayuk in your lineup, whether it's utility or captain, if you're being really contrarian, you might avoid a chalk build. Now you should probably still include Christian McCaffrey, but I think you can work around some of the roster dynamics just by avoiding McCaffrey and McLeod together, if that makes sense. And Ayuk could be a way to do it. He's been awesome. I thought, maybe more coverage, better corners on Ayuk with Debo out. He's performed well regardless. This guy's been a straight up baller for them. And he's not all that different than Debo. Very good run after catch, creates a lot of separation. I think Ayuk is solid as a contrarian play.
It gets a little murky once you get down to some of these other receivers. You've got no Debo, which leaves you with Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod. And then my assumption here is that Danny Gray gets a little bit of opportunity as well. We could talk about tight end in a second, but past Ayuk, is there a definitive option here? Like, is it Ray McLeod? Is it Jennings? Who, to be fair, at least Jennings is someone that is routinely going to see around 40% of snaps, 30-40% of snaps, no matter who's out there, and has had a couple serviceable games this season. But between him, McLeod, and Danny Gray, whose minimum salary, by the way, they're all spaced out to the point where, like, Jennings is 3,600 on DraftKings, of course. You had already mentioned Ray McLeod is 1,200, and then Danny Gray is the stone min at 200. So there's all a tier of separation between the 3 of these guys tonight.
And I think it's going to be a rotation to some degree. You look at Debo Samuel, he can do everything. Great speed, yard after catch, can play in and out of the slot, can play running back. He can do everything you want. Juwan Jennings is a bigger receiver. He's largely going to be playing on the perimeter. That's been his role this season. I don't really foresee it changing much with Debo out. Then you go to Ray McLeod. We know he's basically a special teamer, very small, likely limited to your slot, sort of like a Cole Beasley archetype receiver, if you will. And then Danny Gray, a lot of people might not know him. He's a rookie, came out of SMU. This guy's a pure burner, one of the fastest 40 times at the combine last year. He's probably going to be your situational deep threat receiver when they need a guy like that. And I expect them to all mix and match. If I had to rank them based on opportunity and playing time, it would be Jennings 1, it would be Ray McLeod 2, and it would be Danny Gray 3. I think it's going to be closer maybe than the projections indicate here, but honestly, they're all so cheap that you should probably be playing one of these guys. I think Danny Gray is going to come in the lowest owned, and he could be a pivot off Ray McLeod. 13 snaps, only 3 routes last week, but again, another week of practice. I think it increases, not sure how much, but maybe you see sort of like a Tyquan Thornton-esque role for him here.
Do you think that Ray McLeod gets used in a Debo capacity in the backfield too? Because he had 3 attempts last game. We saw him in, was it Pittsburgh, right? He was in Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
I remember him getting some rushing opportunities there. Not a ton, but they don't run a similar offense to San Francisco. I wouldn't be surprised if McLeod sees, 3 to 5 rushing attempts, maybe 5-6 rushing attempts today either. It wouldn't shock me.
Me either, especially considering they don't have strong change of pace options. Maybe they don't come in your traditional line them up in the backfield style, but you can see jet sweeps, these little touch passes. I think all that's in play for McLeod. He projects the best from a leverage perspective right now when you look at these 3 receivers behind Brandon Ayuk. And again, I think that's a factor of price and role. He's played behind now Ayuk and Jennings. He's the next most active receiver on the roster, at least so far this season. So he's ahead of Danny Gray. And then his price at 1.2K allows you to do anything you want. You get McCaffrey captain, you can play the quarterbacks. There's no problem. So I think he's going to end up being the most popular for a good reason. How you treat that, I think, depends on the size of the tournament you're playing.
What about George Kittle? It's been a tough season for him, unfortunately. I'm a big fan of George Kittle. They just simply haven't needed to utilize him as much as they have in the past, but he's also not that cheap, for a guy who recently just look at recent performance. I mean, it's been underwhelming to say the least outside of that one game against Arizona, where quite literally everybody blew up in Mexico City, on the football field, of course. Do you like him at that price point?
I like him as a contrarian play, but this might just be a personal bias for me. He's probably among, a short list of players I've lost the most money on in the NFL. So
who else is on that list?
Oh, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, all the way back to the Green Bay days. He's up there. If you want to go back like years and years, Sammy Watkins is probably number one. Who's on the list for you?
Oh, man. Maybe Miles Sanders, which is crazy because he's good.
Yeah, and he's having a great year.
He's been good to me this year. Like I'm recouping a lot of those losses on Miles Sanders. I love him this week too. But Miles Sanders is up there. MVS this year for sure. Like definitely Green Bay as well, but this year you're not even getting those rogue long touchdowns from MVS that we had in Green Bay, and I thought we definitely would. I'm sure there's other players out there that you just stick with because you feel like it's there, like they can get it done, and they never do. I don't know, man. There's got to be some other guys out there. You had a couple right off the top of your head. I think probably Sanders over the past several years, just because he was so difficult to predict.
Yeah, I mean, these players haunt me. You've now had MVS with two elite quarterbacks that you're trying to stack every single week. And previously, as long as you were avoiding like Chalk, Kelsey, and Tyreek, you're probably stacking, like one of these ancillary receivers. I've been trying to do that for a while. This year, it's MVS. With Rodgers last year, you're trying to avoid Devontae Adams, so you're playing guys like Allen Lazard and MVS. He just hit so few and far in between. And man, going broke here. He was in my lineup last week, my best lineup. It had Evan Ingram. It had a chance to actually get to the top. I had Evan Ingram, had good defenses, good stack. He was in it.
And it didn't work out great.
No, he had 3 points. I hate it.
I'm telling you, I've been saying this a while now. I've become real jaded when it comes to playing anybody from Kansas City at this point. Like, Kelsey, sure, but stacking the Kansas City Chiefs or trying to figure out which one of these secondary, tertiary options, whatever, is going to go up. There's 11 different guys that could score a touchdown any given week. And like last week, it just so happened to be Jerick McKinnon who had the game of his life. You can't. Getting that right is insane. It's insanely difficult.
It is. And, Kittle's one of these players for me. So is Kyle Pitts. He's another one. Anyway, you know how you can tell you're wrong on these guys and you've been losing a lot of money playing them every week? You have a big game with Kittle. Maybe you chase it. He's at 7K. Bust. Next week, he's at 6.2. Next week, he's at 5.6. Then he's at 5 flat. Like last week, he was at 4.4K or something.
So it's like, what are you supposed to do? What do you expect me to do? Yeah. You're right.
Like, of course, I'm clicking George Kittle at 4.4K, but we don't have that situation here. He's actually priced up, and I think this makes more sense. Before, we're talking about an offense with Debo, with Ayuk, where he's 4.4K. Now he's up at 8K without Debo. He's a good yards after catch receiver himself, so I think he deserves consideration in a vacuum with Ayuk and Kittle being so close in price. I prefer Ayuk just because the role should be a little bit better. But again, I think this is a stance you can take if you're playing large field tournaments, trying to get Kittle or Ayuk into your lineup, just because I think it's going to give you some differentiation off the cheaper San Francisco receivers who are probably a lot more owned tonight.
Anybody else for San Fran stand out to you? I think I'm not going to say it's a concentrated offense. Like, you're still going to see some, no matter whether it makes you comfortable or not, because McCaffrey's fine regardless. Like, you're still going to see some Jordan Mason. He did see 11 attempts last game. So that is actually significant. I want to talk about him actually before we flip to the other side of this game. There's nothing exciting, and you kind of gave the breakdown on Jordan Mason. There's nothing particularly exciting about him, but if they do go with this, insanely run heavy approach, Carolina ran the ball 46 times last game. Okay. 46 times against Seattle. Granted, they can't throw the football, so they have to. They're the type of team that if they can't run, we're about to see the wheels fall off of Carolina. But San Francisco is not really in that same category. They do want to run, though. There's no question about that. Mason played 30% of snaps. He's not going to be involved in the passing game. Why would he be when you have Christian McCaffrey? But he did see 11 carries. Now the question is not, is he going to get work? Because we know Shanahan's not going to give McCaffrey 30 carries in any given game, particularly in the regular season. But is $4,800 too much? And would you consider rostering these guys together? I'm honestly debating it. I'm thinking there might be a path to having the big Christian McCaffrey game, and then Jordan Mason in a potentially low scoring affair has like 10 for 50 and a touchdown and is good enough to get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Brock Purdy banged up. Maybe they just want to take him. Say they get the opening touchdown, then Seattle has like a 3-and-out or something, and San Francisco's really in control of this from the start. You could see them just take the air out of the ball, because what's the use in dropping back Brock Purdy, who is injured, playing through an injury, and then potentially aggravating something when you can lean on your run game, which is already a big mismatch in the game. In that instance, I think you do see Jordan Mason maybe a little bit more as a change of pace back. And he is expensive. You know, if you're playing one lineup, you're playing cash game, something like that, he's too expensive. You're playing Ray McLeod, you're playing Juwan Jennings instead. But for the purposes of large field tournaments, he's not that expensive. 4,800 is doable. It's basically the kicker salary range. And there is a path to him actually having a ceiling without an injury ahead of him. Unlike, Ramondre, where Pierre Strong and these guys needed an injury. It occurred, but generally it won't. In this game, you actually have a path without it. So I like him. One last guy I'll mention before we move on is you always have Kyle Juszczyk to worry about. My favorite player of all time to bet in Super Bowl props, but he occasionally gets a touch or two. And if he's good pass catching back as well. If he catches a long pass or something, he could be a leverage pivot off some of these cheap San Francisco guys. Certainly just a large field tournament play, but he's at least on the field a lot. So we should say his name. Yeah,
that's a great call. One of my best ever showdown slates was the Kyle Juszczyk game where he scored from pretty close to the goal line. And then I think it was like Eli Mitchell or someone got hurt. This was last year, I think, actually, Matt, and Kyle Juszczyk, and everyone's like, oh, nice, Trey Sermon. And I'm thinking, no, it was Eli. This is what it was. We talked about it. Eli Mitchell was out for the game, and Wilson was, because remember, Wilson was on the IR last year, and everyone assumed that Trey Sermon was going to be the guy, even though Shanahan had really not been fond of him all year. And it ended up being Juszczyk who got, like, I think 15, 16 fantasy points or something. Yeah, this is what it was. It was Green Bay, 5 for 14 on the ground, but then 4 for 37 and a touchdown through the air. And he was probably like $800.
I love Juszczyk, man. There is nothing better on this planet than sweating a Juszczyk Super Bowl prop.
What are your bets for, like, what is, are you talking rushing prop or receiving prop? What is it?
You'll get something like Kyle Juszczyk total 12.5 yards or something like that.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. The beautiful, like, anytime you can get fullback props in the Super Bowl where you're betting tons of props, those are the best ones to sweat. Like, give me Minnesota to the Super Bowl just so I can get a good CJ Ham bet out there. That would be the best, man. CJ Ham over 2.5 yards. Anyway, for DFS, Kyle Juszczyk is at least involved enough where you should consider him for large field.
Agreed. And sometimes at the goal line, they'll do some weird shit and get it to Kyle Juszczyk as well. No question.
Yeah, he's big.
I know. He's huge. What an integral role he plays on that team that I don't think people really understand, like how important he is to the functioning of that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. You can run such weird personnel packages with him. You know, you say you don't want to use a tight end and you use two backs. Well, Kyle Juszczyk is big enough to block edge rushers if he needs to. He's dynamic enough as a receiver to leak out of the backfield, catch passes. They can do so much with him. He's very, very underrated.
Oh, last question. How much Brock Purdy are you looking to get to? Of course, he's dealing with the rib and oblique injury. They think he's going to play through it, that it won't re-aggravate anything. It won't cause further injury. But Shanahan also mentioned that it could definitely affect his mobility.
I like Brock Purdy. He is actually a guy that relies on his mobility, not so much from Lamar Jackson. Let's create design runs for him, but he's a scrambler and he navigates the pocket well via his mobility. I'm confident that Kyle Shanahan is aware of this, will be cognizant of this, try to get the ball out of Purdy's hands fast. So I am still interested in him primarily as a contrarian captain play. I think if you use something like Purdy in the captain spot, you could use McCaffrey in the flex and create a unique lineup that way. More of a large field. I think for cash, just to get it out of the way, you're playing McCaffrey and then you're figuring it out from there in the captain spot for tournaments where you can get weird. And I think Purdy is one way to do so.
All right. Let's talk about the other side of this one. Before we do there, No House Advantage, baby. Sponsor of the strategy show. You see it up there in the top, right? What's it say? Oh, yeah. Play versus the house. Win 21 extra entry if you hit all your picks. Or just take advantage of the massive overlay that they've got there. Mike can pull up with the overlay. And by the way, No House Advantage is a pretty new site, but they're still throwing out like 10, 15 grand up top in each of these contests. And then they're overlaying a massive amount. There's no better way to make money than to take advantage of overlay. It's that simple. Like that might sound too simplified, but it's not. If there's a lot of overlay, which you're never going to get on like DraftKings and FanDuel and these big sites anymore, it's just not going to happen. This is intentional. They're doing it because they're saying, hey, come check our product out. We think you're going to like it. But in order to do so, we're going to incentivize it. $50 first match deposit bonus and a ton of overlays better than any deposit bonus you're going to get, right? Because it's the easiest and realest, most practical way to actually make money. And there's no learning curve. So if you click the link in the description or the one in chat, you can check it out for yourself. It's still early in the morning too, so you can familiarize yourself with No House Advantage. But again, any research that Matt and I are doing and information that we're giving you for tonight's game, it's all entirely applicable for No House Advantage. You're just taking props over or under, no juice on either side, and putting them into a lineup. That's it. And the props are static. They don't move. So whatever a prop is now, it's going to be the same tonight before lock. You can find the legitimate edge there. You don't have to worry about going back to it. Just know that when you build these lineups, the props you like the most go at the top because they get the most points. The ones you like the least go at the bottom. They get the fewest. Kind of like a showdown setup when you think about it. And you're playing against the field as you would anywhere else. They have a lineup generator on the site. And at Stokastic, we got everything for free. Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, built the Stokastic or the No House Advantage optimal plays tool or optimal lineups tool for No House Advantage, built a player prop projections over for No House Advantage, specifically for No House Advantage. So you're getting that. You're getting the deposit bonus. You're getting massive overlay. Check it out. Play around with it. Get in there. Take advantage of all that. Use the link in the description if you're trying to take advantage of it too, or the one that we can throw in the chat one more time for those of you guys wondering. All right. Let's talk about the Seahawks here. You know, Ken Walker's back, Matt. They're 3-point dogs. They have a 20-point implied total. Kenneth Walker's back. Man, I got to tell you, though, of all of these guys that are, say, and he's not expensive. Don't get me wrong. He's not expensive. But I'm not all that thrilled about Kenneth Walker today. And I'll tell you one reason why. Maybe you can tell me why I'm wrong. Very good defense for San Francisco. Now, it's only one game, so you're going to have to play again. So we're all going to have Kenneth Walker regardless. I totally understand that. I just hate the fact that there have been a lot of games where this guy has just been completely non-existent in the passing game. That's been my quarrel with Travis Etienne going up against good defenses. Like everyone goes, no, he's a pass catching back, right? That's why Doug didn't draft him, and Doug has zero interest apparently in using him in the passing game. Last week he had 0 targets against Tennessee. Can we rely on Kenneth Walker if all of his production is coming on the ground today? He is touchdown dependent, there's no doubt, but he's pretty cheap as well.
Yeah, price is the biggest thing for me. We have a value score on DraftKings. When you look at the most expensive players on the board, I'll include Walker in this, even though he's a bit cheaper than even Ayuk, certainly cheaper than his receivers, Metcalf, Lockett, and then Geno Smith, of course. He has the highest value score behind McCaffrey. Now it's slight. It's not McCaffrey. There's a chasm between him and the other players. Walker, it's a little closer. And there are paths to failure. So I don't think he's a guy you just lock and load. All right, I want to play him in the flex no matter what. But ultimately, he does project for us as a good play, which makes sense. So he's a player I'm going to be very careful with in my lineups. Try to use him where it makes sense, more playing sort of the game script game. We know he's a lot more involved when this team plays from ahead. I think if you were betting touchdown props for skill position players, he's got to be the number one guy on this team. So the scoring opportunity for him is big. But he has been erased. And this is a phenomenal defense he's facing. So it does come with risk. And this is a guy coming off an injury too. What are the chances his role isn't quite as good as it was before the injury? It's a weird one. Pete Carroll called it a jammed ankle. I don't think Pete Carroll knows what he's talking about.
He referred to it as an unusual ankle injury too. The guy never says anything that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't make sense to me. So I don't even know if this is like something that can be aggravated. I'm obviously not a doctor, but I don't think it's good that he's coming off the injury. And Travis Homer is a phenomenal pass catching back. If the guy isn't quite himself, maybe we just see Travis Homer handle third downs, which is an issue.
Yeah.
So I think I'll end up a little lighter on Walker, but he's a player I still am going to use a bit.
The one positive here is that I'll throw out is he did practice fully on Tuesday and Wednesday. So it seems like he's good, but like you said, that's the problem with Carroll. Don't you remember before the season started, they're like, he goes, Kenneth Walker, we don't know what's going on. And then he's like, it's not a hernia. And then it was a hernia. And then it's, oh yeah, we'll see how he progresses this week. And then he's out for 2 or 3 more weeks. It's just, you can't take what Pete Carroll says at face value ever. So I'll take the fact that Walker was fully participating in practice Tuesday and Wednesday as a sign that he's probably good to go. Matt, there's just no way they can survive with Travis Homer getting all of he played 91% of snaps last week.
He's not a feature back. He's a specialist. He did that out of necessity. They were also down DJ Dallas. Tony Jones is a guy they had up in case of emergency. They clearly do not want to do that unless they absolutely have to. And Homer, his price is egregious. I understand why it's so high. You're kind of covering your bases in case Walker's out, but you just flat out can't play him. I think he's more a conversation piece in what he does to Walker than anything else. And I do think this is maybe a little more of a timeshare than it has been all year to kind of put a bow on this.
Humboldt said Pete Carroll's like 80. Give him a break. No. It's not about. He does this on purpose. And Pete Carroll is one of the best coaches in my lifetime. Like I personally think Pete Carroll is a great coach. As much as he frustrates me, as much as he called a passing play in the Super Bowl, like they've made some mistakes. Don't get me wrong, but Pete Carroll's a good coach. He's not doing this because he's senile. Like he's not forgetting where he is. He's doing this because he's like, hey, you guys don't need to know. That's all. That's why it's frustrating. Am I wrong about that, Matt?
No, I would do the same if I were him.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It sucks for us, but hey, you guys don't need to know exactly what's going on. That's all.
Yeah, Zach Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor. There's a bunch. And then Belichick just lists everybody as questionable. So
yeah, that's funny. It's kind of a good old FU to the league and the injury reporting stuff.
For sure.
Belichick, I think, is the hardest one to evaluate of everyone because literally whole thing just cues.
Dude, there were years where I remember going on the DraftKings and like clicking the Patriots, and it was a sea of red. Just the sea of red cues. Like literally, when Edelman was still on the team, maybe they told them to stop with that. Do you remember that though, where you'd legitimately have every starter with a questionable tag?
Yeah, it's still pretty close to it.
Yeah, but at least these guys now are actually not playing in a lot of those games. We knew that before they'd all play. Like at least now some of them are actually injured.
Yeah, freaking Bill, man.
Hey,
Bill won't speak about it though. Like Pete, he'll like gladly take the mic. You're just not getting anything actionable.
Right. It's just word salad. Devin Edwards said 312 people in here and you can't tap the like button. Come on. A man of the people that doing God's work here. We got over 350 right now and we still haven't hit 100. There's 10 of you. There's 10 of you out there that are saying, oh shit, I forgot, but I will happily atone for my sins here and get us north of that 100 mark on a wonderful Thursday morning. It's snowing here, Matt. It's raining. It's sleeting. It's nasty outside. 30 degrees. Sucks. I hate the winter, man. I hate it.
I don't mind it. I'm a northern guy.
I'm a northeastern guy. Like it still gets cold here, but if I could move to Florida, I would. Better believe that.
I like ice skating. You play hockey, you know.
Yeah, I love it. Indoors.
Fair. You don't like a good pond hockey game?
Dude, it was the best. Yes. Some of my best memories are playing pond hockey as a kid. And then you hit one of those ice divots and just eat shit. Oh, yeah. What a time.
Yeah. Me and my friends used to play after school every day. Took a ton of pucks to the shins without being properly protected. Those are good feelings. Yeah.
But you know how those bumps would come up sometimes out of the ice? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude. And you didn't see it coming? It's like when I skateboarded when I was younger. Like, you're skateboarding and you don't see that big pebble that just completely jams you up and you shoot 15 feet off the board. Similar concept, except with skateboarding, you land on your shoulder. If you hit that bump when you're on skates, on ice skates, you're going face first into the ice.
Yeah, I never skateboarded, but I did a lot of inline skating, similar to
then
ice. Yeah,
not fun.
Nah.
So the wide receivers for Seattle, and thanks, 117 likes, absolutely crushed that. I knew we got some good people out there. The wide receivers for the Seahawks, this is pretty cut and dry if we're just talking about like route participation, snap share. Lockett, you're going to get probably 90 plus, around 90% of snaps. He's going to be on the field 90% of the time. Same with DK Metcalf. And then Marquise Goodwin, he played 76% of snaps last game. Derek Young played 2 snaps, and that was it. So it's basically Lockett, Metcalf, and Marquise Goodwin. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, me too. I love these guys as contrarian plays. Again, I'll be looking for ways to get off of the chalk McCaffrey, Ray McLeod build. However, I can do that. And right now we actually have negative leverage for both DK Metcalf and Lockett, I believe. I do not seem to see his name right now, but I'm sure he's on this list. Anyway, the opportunity between them is pretty condensed. You're kind of just, looking at who's lower owned, who has maybe a slightly cheaper price. They're both very close today. In a vacuum, I'm generally going to say Lockett by a hair, but I can't fault you for playing DK Metcalf at all. These are 2 of the highest ceiling receivers on the slate. Again, tough defense, but we've seen ways for this team to manufacture production for them. I'll go Lockett slightly if you had to make me pick, but I plan on playing both of them, and I plan on using a bit of them in the captain just to get off that McCaffrey captain heavy ownership there.
And you know what? It's a good defense, yes, but at least we don't have an offense going up against a stellar, just suffocating defense where we have to try and figure out which one of 9 players is going to get the football. Like in this case, Metcalf on the season, 26.5% target share. Lockett, 24% target share. So basically these guys are each getting a quarter of targets, a slight lean towards DK Metcalf. And then it falls off a cliff. Noah Fant, 11%. Marcus Goodwin, 10%. Will Dissly, 9%. Ken Walker, 9%. Homer, 8%. You get the point, right? So as far as target share goes, this isn't to say that Goodwin or Dissly or Noah Fant can't score that rogue touchdown. We've seen it happen plenty of times. We've seen Dissly have some big showdown games already this year. I believe in week 1 against Denver, he did. But we know that Lockett and Metcalf are the 2 clear definitive options. They make up north of 50% of the team's target share on the season together. The question isn't, do you play those guys? Because you laid it out nicely. Maybe slightly in the Lockett, whatever. Maybe people like Metcalf a little more. Take advantage of our tools. That'll help you make these decisions a little easier, especially if you're getting more leverage on a player. The question, though, is like, what do we do with all of these tertiary options in Seattle today? It's a showdown. We only have 1 game to choose from. We have to talk about them.
Marquise Goodwin, you mentioned, is the wide receiver 3 here. It's funny, just looking at our projections right now, he actually projects for less points than Ray McLeod in a vacuum, not considering price. That's with the change in role we're expected to see in San Francisco. So Goodwin, I think, is going to be one of the lowest owned. We have low-owned guys like Will Dissly all the time, but for guys that are actually on the field nearly every single play, I think he's going to be one of the lowest owned players on the slate, and for a good reason. It's a middling price tag, a fair projection, but it's just a slate where we have ample value, so people don't need to click Marquise Goodwin's name. So I think he's a large field tournament play I'd be interested in. I don't know about the captain slot. I'd be looking at Metcalf and Lockett before him, but he's at least on your radar. And I think he's probably going to be the lowest owned, premier starting skill position player, not premier.
Yeah, you're probably right. He's going to be on the field most of the. Do you anticipate Goodwin coming out and playing another like 70, 75% of snaps?
I think so. They don't really have anybody else.
Right. I know. I guess the only reason he hadn't been was because, well, I don't know what, weeks 12 and 13, were they just running a ton of like 2 receiver sets?
Yeah, so that's one thing I was going to say when we got to tight ends. You'll see a decent amount of 12 personnel with Seattle, but it kind of depends. If they're getting crushed in the game, they're not running 2 tight end sets. But exactly. It's a tight spread, so 3 points here. You just know if they're down, that's where you probably see more Marquise Goodwin. If they're up or neutral, they'll use a fair amount of 12.
Right. And last week we know what happened. You know, they didn't have the luxury of playing with the lead and just running as much as they could, because this is a team that would like to run the football as well. Will Dissly, Noah Fant. I mean, at this rate, isn't it kind of just a dart throw on which one of these guys is going to get the end zone target or the red zone target or the few extra targets as the other guy? It's so hard to say. Like, Noah Fant did run, just taking last week as an example, 17 routes to Dissly's 11, but they're going to be on the field, I think, for pretty similar amount of time, maybe more blocking for I don't know, man. Do you have a preference here?
My preference is to go down to Dissly and Parkinson, just because Fant is a bit more expensive. And I think a way to get different on this slate is just to fade Ray McCloud. Again, for cash games, low risk contests, smaller field tournaments, don't do this. But if you're playing the Millie Maker style stuff, your 100,000 entries, maybe even 50,000 entries or larger, you're going to have to differentiate off the chalk build, which is the combination of McCaffrey and McCloud, at least as it stands right now. We actually have viable cheap plays. They project way worse for good reason. It's Parkinson, it's Dissly, these players that are on the field, 30 to 50% of the time, they're touchdown dependent tight ends, but that touchdown dependency also gives you enough upside to potentially outscore a guy like Ray McCloud, who's going to be more involved, but certainly as a floor, you can see Ray McCloud busting without really even thinking twice. So I like Dissly and Parkinson, especially as these players you can use as direct leverage off the Ray McClouds, off the Juwan Jennings. Again, these aren't likely plays. They're not likely to hit. They're your large field tournament style guys, but at least we have alternatives here where you don't necessarily need to just flip the build entirely. That's another strategy you can do, but there are ways to be kind of unique with this. And I think the tight ends are one way.
And I think it goes without saying that, Robbie Gould, Jason Myers, both defenses, I think everything's kind of viable here today. The Seahawks defense isn't exciting, but they are very cheap. And, maybe Brock Purdy isn't right. An oblique and a rib injury, just that torque motion is going to be difficult for him if he plays. If he doesn't, it's Josh Johnson, right? Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I think he could do worse, but I mean, yeah. Hey, Josh Johnson in the XFL. Wasn't he XFL?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. For who was he on? The red team.
Was he on Orlando?
No, they were.
Dang it.
No, did they have it Orlando? Yeah. It was wasn't Houston, right?
I can't remember now. I'm getting the AAF, the XFL, and the USFL skewed. It's, there's been like one a year. It's kind of like all one minor league football season, and I'm starting to get it confused because I've covered them all absurdly. It was to the degeneracy of my life.
What team was it? What? How can I not figure?
He's been on what, 15 NFL teams too?
Yeah.
So he's been on 15 NFL teams. He's been on a couple minor league teams. This guy's just I wonder what his net worth is after playing so many years as a backup.
It's a good question. Because Jordan Ta'amu was St. Louis, I think.
Go Battlehawks.
Battlehawks. That's what it was. The Battlehawks. The LA Wildcats was Josh Johnson.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that.
The LA Wildcats. Yeah. And then the other one was like the Houston Roughnecks. Remember the Roughnecks?
Yeah, they had like an air raid coach.
Great team name. All right. Did you want to talk about anything defense or kicker related?
I don't think so. I think they're going to be more contrarian today because you have so many value plays like Ray McLeod, really cheap style value plays. But I'm trying to play a little more of these guys in game environments like this where they're unowned. To kind of sum it up, I have no issues with kickers on either side. I slightly prefer Robbie Gould, but I mean, we're splitting hairs here.
All right, let's build a lineup here. We'll turn it over to the NBA strategy show after this. And a friendly reminder that free stuff is good stuff. And at BetMGM, you're getting 2 free months of all of our tools. I remember I told you earlier in the show, I was like, hey, take advantage of the 3 free days of Stokastic because you're getting Saturday football, tools for Sunday you're getting tonight. Or just go ahead and say, I'm going to get 2 free months instead, right? Just say, I'll go and I'll put $10 into BetMGM. Got to use the link or we can't find you. And I will bet $10 on any game. Don't do like an odds booster or a parlay because I'm assuming that doesn't work. Do like a straight bet, $10. If you win, you're still getting your money, but you're also getting 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, every tool for every single sport, ownership, player projection, top stack tool, boom bust tool, top showdown plays tool, all of our projections and ownership for Showdown, the brand new lineup generator, which is sick. You can now swap players in and out. I mean, just a million different things for every sport. If they have contests out there on all these sites, we got content for it. You got all of it for 2 months, $240 value. And you have up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Not either or, but both. So if you go into it with, let's say you want to put $10 in, fine. You lose your bet, you still get a $10 free bet back. It's amazing. Plus the 2 free months. If you go, I got a little extra money, I'll put $100 in. You put make $100 bet, you lose, you win, you get your money. You lose, $100 in free bets. Pretty sweet, man. Awesome deal. When I talk free stuff here, I legitimately mean it. It's $10 into parlayed into 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and $1,000 up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Link is in the description, links in chat. And plus, we'd love to see you guys come over and check out our site and join the premium Discord. It's a great community. A lot of fun stuff happening and the best tools in the industry. Matt, let's rip through this one. Lineup, we'll turn it over to the strategy show for the National Basketball Association. Who do you want to captain today?
I believe it's your turn.
Is it?
I went on Monday.
All right. So the obvious answer is Christian McCaffrey. I just want to see what a build looks like with Christian McCaffrey at captain. Let's see what we can do. We'll go smaller field GPP, like the $50 single entry we talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent a lot of time on the show talking about ways to get contrarian in the captain spot. You can use McCaffrey and then try to build in differences with the rest of your lineup. So I like the McCaffrey number 1. I'm going to put in a Seattle receiver with DK Metcalf number 2.
I like it. Okay. Here's where I'm going to be a little different. Okay. I'm going to go Jordan Mason. I'm going to play this as a maybe they run the ball 40 times today, 38 times, whatever. I'm going to throw Jordan Mason in here. I don't think it's insane.
I don't think it is either. Let's go Geno Smith then. I think with this lineup, we're playing a little more of the game script game. You need San Francisco up by a lot of points to really maximize the ceiling for this build. In that instance, Seattle should be passing. So we've got a Geno Smith to DK Metcalf stack.
Love it. I'm going to go Ray too. We talked about fading him, but I think McCaffrey Mason lineups are going to be pretty unique in smaller field. That gives us 6,300. Anything you can do there that you feel even remotely decent about?
Yeah, so 100% agree with you. We have the chalk McCaffrey to Ray, but we address the ownership with the Jordan Mason play. This is a bit of a tough range, but I think you either can look at a San Francisco defense, and no offense to tight end, or one of the kickers, because we do still have that chalk build. I'm going to throw in Robbie Gould, leave a little bit of salary on the table to hopefully just fix whatever ownership we might have to deal with here to round it out. So there's 2,300 left.
I like that. I like it. All right. And by the way, we're making this on the fly. So, adjustment. This is just to give you an idea of what type of builds you can get to. Appreciate you guys, as always. Very fun show. You guys make it even better, especially when you hit that thumbs up, which you did. Came out in droves today. Got over 400 people watching. Good luck tonight, guys. Live before locks on the night for football, basketball, deeper dive, NBA strategy show coming up next. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski, me at Laffy_D. Hopefully soon to be at Laffy once that scumbag relinquishes his title. No. Anyway, shout out to Mike for producing this one. We'll see you guys back here. More Monday Night Football, Week 16. Peace.